गूह्यते नापि वाचा नान्यैर्देवैस्तपसा कर्मणा वा ज्ञानप्रसादेन विशुद्धसत्त्वास्ततस्तु तं पश्यति निष्कलं ध्यायमानः एषोऽनुरात्मा चेतसा वेदितव्यो यस्मिन् प्राणः पञ्चधा सन्निविवेश प्राणैश्चित्तं सर्वभूतं प्रजानां यस्मिन् विशुद्धे विभवत्येषयात्मा यम यमलोकं मनसा संविभाति विशुद्धसत्त्वः कामयते यांश्च कामान् तं तं लोकं जयते कांश्च कामान् तस्मादात्मजं यर्चयेत् भूतिकामः.
His privilege regained a shadowless sight. The thinker entered the immortal's air and drank again his pure and mighty source.
चक्षुषा गूह्यते नापि वाचा नान्यैर्देवैस्तपसा कर्मणा वा ज्ञानप्रसादेन विशुद्धसत्त्वास्ततस्तु तं पश्यति निष्कलं ध्यायमानः एषोऽनुरात्मा चेतसा वेदितव्यो यस्मिन् प्राणः पञ्चधा सन्निविवेश प्राणैश्चित्तं सर्वभूतं प्रजानां यस्मिन् विशुद्धे विभवत्येषयात्मा यम यमलोकं मनसा संविभाति विशुद्धसत्त्वः कामयते यांश्च कामान् तं तं लोकं जयते कांश्च कामान् तस्मादात्मजं यर्चयेत् भूतिकामः.
Good morning. We're following King Aswapati's journey through the planes of the inner worlds. Aswapati, the lord of Tapasya, Savitri's father, has ascended to heights of spiritual consciousness in his yoga. And from those heights, he looks out upon all the inner planes of existence, all the subtle worlds open to the yogi's vision. And he embarks on a journey through those worlds, and Sri Aurobindo takes us through describing the scenes and the beings that live in those worlds, the actions that take place there, the characteristics of each of those worlds, which are arranged in a hierarchy from matter up towards the highest realms of spirit. So there's a whole series of worlds. He says 100 levels raised it to the unknown, this huge pile of worlds. He's looking out into those. And he starts towards the bottom of that series of worlds in the kingdoms of subtle matter and works his way up through the worlds of the vital, of the life force, where desire is predominant. He moves into the worlds of the mind, at the levels of human mind, but then into the higher spiritual mind. And that's where we are now in following his journey, the kingdoms and Godheads of the greater mind. So we've come to page 261, towards the beginning of this canto. And here he's going to describe these worlds. First, he gives us kind of an overview, and then he will go through in a series these kingdoms of the spiritual mind, going upwards towards the highest of them. But in the beginning here, he's giving us an overview. And one of the intriguing things that we see in this beginning, he makes several references to the ideal mind. And Sri Aurobindo doesn't discuss this too much in his philosophy in The Life Divine. So I'm really having some trouble really kind of identifying what this is. But from the description that we're about to read just now, it seems to be associated with the overmind, which is just at the very top of the mind levels, where there are these broad ideal thoughts or ideas that are manifested. The overmind, Sri Aurobindo talks about as the world of the gods. So, and these gods are creators, and they can create their own worlds. And they also influence the great ideals that are here on earth. So those ideals that we have, the greatest ideals of humanity, are some kind of distant reflections of the ideals as situated on these high realms of the overmind. So we can begin reading. I'd like to start at line 36, just on page 261 towards the top. And perhaps Sanjay can begin.
Awake in a luminous sphere, awake in a luminous sphere unbound by thought, exposed to omniscient immensities, it casts on our world its great ground influences. Its speed that outstrips the ambling of the hours, its force that strides invincibly through time, its mights that bridge the gulf twixt man and God, its lights that combat ignorance and death, in its vast ambit of ideal space, where beauty and mightiness work hand in hand. The Spirit's truths take form as living gods, and each can build a world in its own right. In an air which doubt and error cannot mark with the stigmata of their deformity, in communion with the musing privacy of our truth that sees in an unerring light, where the sight falters not nor wanders thought, exempt from our world's exorbitant tax of tears, dreaming its luminous creations gaze on the ideas that people eternity.
Thank you. Pause there. So I take a moment just to reread and reflect.
In a sun
No,
blaze
no,
of
no. Just a
joy.
sec. Excuse me. We're going to pause there. So now you just reread in yourself quietly. Reflect on this passage we've just read. And in a moment, we'll discuss this a little bit and then we'll continue. So just reread to yourself quietly. So here Sri Aurobindo, through his character Aswapati, is giving us a view of the highest heights of creation, overseeing the creation. These are the gods that make the creation. From there, they're exposed to the highest truth, the highest knowledge from above them. the supermind. But here they give some kind of expression to the central ideas of that truth, the ideals. And they can create worlds based on these truths. And those worlds and those ideas also take form in our diminished substance of matter here in our world as well. So that's what he's describing here. These beings are awake in a luminous sphere, unbound by thought, exposed to omniscient immensities, all-knowing space, and it casts on our world its great crowned influences, such as its speed that outstrips the ambling of the hours, its force that strides invincibly through time, its mights that bridge the gulf twixt man and God, its lights, its knowledge that combat ignorance and death. So in that realm, it lives in a vast ambit of ideal space. That's its sphere of operation, its range, its scope, where beauty and mightiness walk hand in hand. The Spirit's truths take form as living gods, and each can build a world in its own right. So when we see that in this realm, it's untouched by any deformity, by any ignorance. It sees in an unerring light where the sight falters not, nor wanders thought. It's exempt, free from our world's exorbitant tax of tears, from our exorbitant exceeding all bounds, our tax of tears. In dreaming, its luminous creations gaze on the ideas that people eternity, the ideas that live forever and manifest in the creation. So now we can continue.
In a sun blaze of joy and absolute power, above the masters of the ideal throne, in sessions of secure felicity, in regions of illumined certitude. Far are these realms from our labor and yearning and call. Perfection's reign and hallowed sanctuary, closed to the uncertain thoughts of human mind, remote from the turbid thread of mortal life. But since our secret selves are next of kin, a breath of unattained divinity visits the imperfect earth on which we toil. Across a gleaming ether's golden love, a light falls on our vexed, unsatisfied lives. A thought comes down from the ideal world and moves us to new model even here. Some image of their greatness and appeal and wonder beyond the ken of mortal hope.
Thank you. We'll pause there. Yeah, that's, there's always two sides to creation, the manifestation. We can look at it impersonally or personally. So each force, kind of vibration, also takes form as a being. And we can even think, each human being also, they kind of represent a certain vibration of force and character, kind of an energy each person has. But throughout creation and throughout these different worlds, the worlds are characterized by a certain vibration, by a certain kind of energy, whether mental or vital. And within those realms, many different levels and different types. But there are always beings that represent those energies. So similarly, at the highest levels here, in the levels of the overmind, the various truths, possibilities that are inherent in the divine or in the supermind above take form, both as energies and as beings that embody those energies. So here in this world of the ideal mind, it's kind of living truths or great ideas that take form as gods, as different aspects of the divine. So we see also the Hindu gods, for example, they represent different kind of qualities of the divine. They take form as beings on those realms. In that realm of the overmind, there are beings that live there on all these different kingdoms that, Sri Aurobindo is describing throughout this book. There are always beings that are living there representing those energies. At the same time, those beings and those forces try to manifest themselves here on earth, in us. So he's describing some of that influence here. So here he's calling above, the masters of the ideal throne. So they are living on that plane of consciousness, the plane of the gods. And they're the masters of the ideal. So they each represent some certain ideal, whether it's love and beauty or delight or great thought, wisdom, power. So they live there in a secure felicity, a secure happiness that nothing can abrogate, in regions of illumined certitude. And here he says, far are those realms from our labor and yearning and call. In several places, Sri Aurobindo talks about the overmind as really being beyond the ken of human beings. I think there are a few human beings who are able to gain some kind of access to those worlds and see what's going on there and receive some influence from them or partake of some of the knowledge, but they're very rare beings. For the most part, this realm is inaccessible for the most part to human beings. But he says from that realm, an influence comes down. And he's going to describe further in detail that there is a kind of an intermediate realm between that higher overmind realm and human thought that is accessible to human beings. He'll be describing this intermediary realm in the next pages. Yeah. Just read, I don't have the numbers here, so if you can read the whole line. Or
Of a truth that sees in an unerring light, where the sight falters not, nor wanders thought.
So, and what's the question?
So if we are on the side of truth, we are gods. But if we are not being truthful, and that is because of the wandering thought.
Well, you may be making a little bit too stark of a conclusion, but the wandering thoughts, yes, they deflect us from truth.
And why does it happen? Like, why cannot we with that eternal truth?
Why can't we? Because we are evolving from a base of matter, from a base of unconsciousness. And we're slowly evolving and growing towards this realm, towards this kind of omniscient knowledge, this all-knowing. But we have a long way to still go in this evolution towards that realm.
But sometimes we are lifted, but many times we just drop back to.
Yes.
So what is the reason?
Because we're still emerging out of that original ignorance and darkness. So sometimes we can open ourselves to that light. Actually, we also have this kind of an inner being. There's an inner part of us that is in touch with these higher realms. Okay, but we're usually not aware of that inner part of our being. but we can go deep within, and then we can become closer in contact with those influences from above, and they can manifest in us more. Sometimes when we open ourselves more within, then we'll receive this light and we'll feel lifted up towards that. But because we're still embodied in this physical matter, and our own bodies still have this, this residue of matter that is unconscious. Part of our bodies, our physical part of us is still quite unconscious. So it draws us back down again. So there is this tendency to be able to climb and then come back down and then rise again. And through that process, we gradually evolve and refine this ignorance of the matter within us. And it gets refined through this process, and gradually it becomes more and more illumined. So that's the process of evolution and of yoga.
Kind of becomes very demotivating when you feel you have graduated and then sometimes you are back in primary. And then you feel, okay, all the way.
Yeah.
There's so many layers and layers and layers and layers.
Yeah, it's a long process that.
You have to read Sri Aurobindo, because he's describing his own tapasya, he's describing his own sadhana. So he sat in silence for years to go through all of that, and he's reproducing it here. So we follow the story.
Thank you.
So he's saying, even from these high realms, which are more or less inaccessible to us, a thought comes down from the ideal worlds and moves us to new model, even here, some image of their greatness and appeal and wonder beyond the ken of mortal hope. So we strive for these ideals, for this, omniscience, all-knowing, even though it's still a quite remote possibility for us. We still strive for that. We have those ideals. So we continue. Would you read?
Amid the heavy sameness of the days and contradicted by the human law, a faith in things that are not and must be, life's comrade of this world's delight and pain, the child of the secret soul's forbidden desire, born of its armor with eternity. Our spirits break free from their environment. The future brings its phase of miracle near. Its Godhead looks at us with present days. Acts deemed impossible grow natural. We feel the hero's immortality, the courage and the strength death cannot touch. Awake the limbs that are mortal, hearts that fail. We move by the rapid impulse of a will that scorns the tardy trudge of mortal time. These promptings come not from an aligned sphere. Ourselves are citizens of that mother state. Adventures we have colonized matter's night.
Thank you. Let's pause. So Sri Aurobindo is here emphasizing and describing the influence of these ideals, of these ideas from this realm that affects us here and inspires us to strive for these great ideals, even here in earth. A faith in things that are not and must be. All our life and the whole tendency of our world is to move towards that, towards those ideals, and embody them here on earth. That's the whole divine plan for the earth. And something in us comes from that realm. Our souls actually descend from that realm and are adventurers here in this world of ignorance and matter in order to embody those great ideals here in matter, in this world. Towards the end there, he says, ourselves are citizens of that mother state, adventurers. We have colonized matter's night. So when we feel the influences from that, because our inner being is still in touch with those realms, so we feel the hero's immortality, the courage and strength death cannot touch. We move by the rapid impulse of a will that scorns the tardy trudge of mortal time. So we're inspired by these realms because ourselves have come from that. Our souls have come from that into this physical world of matter. So we continue, Prabhi.
Some clarification about these lines. Born of its unknown with eternity, the child of secret soul's forgotten desire, born of its unknown with eternity. It's not very clear what it wants to say here.
Okay. So the faith that he says in the first line, a faith in things that are not and must be, lives comrade. It lives in comradeship with our world here on earth, this world's delight and pain. The child of the secret soul's forbidden desire, born of its amour with eternity. So this faith is a child of the secret soul's forbidden desire, born of its amour with eternity, because our soul has come from that realm. So it's in love with that beauty and delight and wisdom. So and our faith comes from that, from our soul. Is that clear now?
Soul's forbidden desire, but that's same as faith.
Yeah, it's just it's the desire, I think, just that faith in things that are not. I think that's why it's forbidden.
But must be.
But must be, right. Okay, let's continue.
An errant ray from the immortal mind.
No, I think But now our rights are barred. Right?
90, yeah. But now our rights are barred, our passports void. We live self-exiled from our heavenlier home, an errant ray from the immortal mind, accepted the earth's blindness and became our human thought, servant of ignorance. An exile, laborer on this unsure globe, captured and driven in life's nescient grasp, hampered by obscure cell and treacherous nerve, it dreams of happier states and nobler paths, the natural privilege of unfallen gods, recalling still its old lost sovereignty. Amidst earth's mist and fog and mud and stone, it still remembers its exalted sphere and the high city of its splendid birth. A memory steals in from lost heavens of truth. A wide release comes near, a glory calls. A might looks out, an estranged felicity.
Thank you. So our soul, which is divine, has come down from these realms. Adventurers, we have colonized matter's night. But now our rights are barred, our passports void. We live self-exiled from our heavenlier home. Now it's very difficult for us to get back to that realm. We've come into the darkness of physical matter to create a divine life here in the world, in this world of ignorance. We've accepted the earth's blindness and became our human thought, servant of ignorance. Our thought is a servant of ignorance. We still don't know. We don't have the knowledge. We're just striving to piece together some image of things. We're in exile, laborer on this unsure globe, captured and driven in life's nescient grasp, hampered by obscure cell and treacherous nerve. These more physical, vital parts of our nature hamper our ascent back to those realms. But we dream of happier states and nobler powers, the natural privilege of the unfallen gods, those that did not descend into this matter. And somewhere in us, there's something that still recalls this old lost sovereignty. Amidst earth's mist and fog and mud and stone, it still remembers its exalted sphere and the high city of its splendid birth. A memory steals in from the lost heavens of truth. A wide release comes near, a glory calls, a might looks out, an estranged felicity. So we get these intimations from these realms still, because something in us still remembers that that is our home.
That memories help us to rise again to that light. So always not always failure. There is also
Right. We've fallen, but we've done that. I mean, he makes it clear, we've accepted to come into this. We call it a fall, but here he also calls it an adventure.
going up again.
Well, the adventure of coming down and exploring this realm of ignorance and trying to create something here.
The adventure of going back.
And the adventure of going back.
That's why Mother said, I invite you to the adventure.
But it's also not just a journey back, but also a new creation here, because this new colonization of matter will be a different creation, a new creation, different than it is in the overmind realm.
We call it a new model.
New model.
Like also that here in that is 87, ourselves are citizens of that mother state. So it is also an implication that is the mother state to remember the mother of our mother state.
Okay, let's continue.
In glamorous passages of half-veiled light, wandering a brilliant shadow of itself, this quick, uncertain leader of blind gods, this tender of small lamps, this minister of surf, hired by a mind and body of earth's use, forget its work mid crude realities, it recovers its renounced imperial right. It wears once a more purple robe of thought and knows itself the ideal seer and king, communicant and prophet of the unborn, heir to the delight and immortality. All things are real that here are only dreams. In our unknown depths sleep. In our unknown depths sleep the reserve of truth. On our unreached heights there reigned and come to us in thought and muse trailing their robes of light. But our dwarf will and cold pragmatic sense admit not the celestial visance, awaiting us on the ideal's peak, are guarded in our secret self unseen, yet unflash sometimes across the awakened soul, hide from our lives from greatness, beauty, power.
Thank you. Let's pause. This is interesting and a little difficult, I think, this description. It seems that he's describing some influence coming down from these realms, some instrument of thought that becomes obscured in glamorous passages of half-veiled light. So as this greater knowledge comes down into the darkness of earth, the light is half-veiled. And this light that's coming down wanders, a brilliant shadow of itself. It can't reflect purely that original light. It's a shadow of it. This quick, uncertain leader of blind gods, this tender of small lamps, this minister serf hired by a mind and body for earth use. So this knowledge that's coming down from above gets utilized for earth use. Right? It kind of loses its brilliance, its original truth, and then it becomes, in a way, deflected or diminished to serve the purposes of life and matter. Forgets its work mid crude realities. So while it comes down and is working amid these crude realities, it's been hired for earth use. So it's working on, engineering problems or scientific problems or whatever. So for a while it forgets that work. And then it recovers its renounced imperial right. It wears once more a purple robe of thought and knows itself the ideal seer and king. So sometimes this higher thought comes down, it gets diminished, utilized for the purposes of life and matter, but sometimes then it just kind of recovers some sense of what it really is, its true self. It recovers that original ideal seer and king. Then it becomes a communicant and prophet of the unborn, heir to delight and immortality. So then he compares it. In that realm of overmind or ideal mind, all things are real, that here are only dreams. In our unknown depths sleeps their reserve of truth. So something deep within us still has some sense of that original truth. But on our unreached heights, they reign. They live in that world, fully expressed. And they come to us in thought and muse, trailing their robes of light. But our dwarf will and cold pragmatic sense admit not the celestial visitants. So even when these great inspirations come from the ideal mind, something in us, can't embody them, can't give them form with our will. Our will is too weak. And our cold, pragmatic sense, we're still too focused on practical realities of physical life. So we don't admit those greater inspirations, intuitions. They await us on the ideals peaks. Yet sometimes they're flashed across the awakened soul. Sometimes we get little visitations from those realms. But they hide from our lives their greatness, beauty, and power. So we get touches, flashes from these realms, but usually not so much more than that. We can't really fulfill them here on earth yet. Margaret, do we continue? Our present feels.
Our present feels sometimes their regal touch. Our future strives towards their luminous thrones. Out of spiritual secrecy they gaze, immortal footfalls in mind's corridors sound. Our souls can climb into the shining plains. The breadths from which they came can be our home. His privilege regained of shadowless sight, the thinker entered the immortal's air and drank again his pure and mighty source. Immutable in rhythmic calm and joy, he saw, sovereign and free in limitless light, the unfallen plains, the thought-created worlds, where knowledge is a leader of the act, and matter is of thinking substance made. Feeling, a heaven bird poised on dreaming wings, answers truth's call as a parent voice. Form luminous leaps from the all-shaping beam, and will is a conscious chariot of the gods, and life, a splendor stream of musing forth, carries the voices of the mystic suns.
Thank you. So again, Sri Aurobindo is describing that influences from that realm come down here on earth. Our present feels sometimes their regal touch. Our future strives towards their luminous thrones. Out of spiritual secrecy, they gaze. It's almost as if they're looking out from that realm upon us. Immortal footfalls in mind's corridors sound. If our minds become very quiet, silent, we can open up to these higher realms, and inspirations, thoughts can come from those realms, or we can hear them in the quietness of our mind. Our souls can climb into the shining plains. The breaths from which they came can be our home. So before he was saying that they're far from our realm, from our ability, but he's saying also we can climb to those realms. The way is difficult and the journey is long, but it's possible. And then he refers to his, and I think he's referring here to Aswapati, his privilege regained of shadowless sight. So he has regained this ability to look into these worlds. The thinker entered the immortal's air. He's gone into those realms and drank again his pure and mighty source. Immutable in rhythmic calm and joy, he saw, sovereignly free in limitless light, the unfallen plains, the thought-created worlds, where knowledge is the leader of the act, and matter is of thinking substance made. There, the physical form is a direct embodiment of these great ideas, great ideals. It's not dull and ignorant and inconscient like our matter. It's a very refined substance. Feeling, a heaven bird poised on dreaming wings, answers truth's call as to a parent's voice. So the light also is the life power, the life energies are very responsive to the higher truth. Form, luminous leaps from the all-shaping beam. So form gives a luminous expression to this light. And will is a conscious chariot of the gods. And life, a splendor stream of musing force, carries the voices of the mystic sons. So Aswapati is looking into this ideal world of the overmind. And Sri Aurobindo is giving us a glimpse into it.
Would you say that this suggests that our perception of the world is totally a dream? It's a maya, it's an ignorance. Because he says that the real, this is the real, not what we perceive, not what we live in. Would you say that?
Well, I would say that our reality, it's not a complete maya, that it's not a complete illusion, but it's a diminished kind of shadow or reflection of this higher realm. It's kind of something like seeing through a broken mirror. So it's divided into, pieces. We can't see the whole image, we only see little sections. But still, this is something from that, of that. Matter and spirit are ultimately one. Matter comes from that, but it's very dense, it's very dark and ignorant, but still it's the same thing holding back its light. Instead of light of consciousness, there is just this inconscient energy and force of matter, physical energy. It's become that. And then there is this reascension, even within that matter, that inconscience, that light is still there, but it's withheld. It's just hidden deep within. And gradually it emerges.
But it's not withheld, it's just that we, that will that you talked about, we have that resistance to it, that's all.
Hmm.
So the reality is only one. Right?
The reality is one, yeah.
So we don't divide into matter spirit, we don't divide into me and you or any of that.
You mean ultimately?
Yes.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's all one. I think so. And from that realm, it's known. But from our side, it's unknown.
But it's an only an appearance. So mentally we can still understand. I think that's what quantum physics and these things are trying to say now. About the energies and the vibrations. That's all we perceive. And we interpret it. I think.
Yeah, what we see, what we understand is a product of our limited mind, right? So we don't see the reality truly.
Maybe the problem comes from that in the creation, the supreme oneness, the oneness, always takes new forms. And we are in a special process where new forms get created. And then we have to learn in these new forms to see the divine presence behind. I think that is the problem of understanding, or maybe which can help or to be open that I would say that is needed, this process from below.
Yeah, and I think part of maybe what you're saying is like our minds too, we want to look at reality like a snapshot photograph, like it's just one thing. But again, that's diminishing the reality, which is much more fluid and dynamic, and is many different things at once. But our minds can't really deal with that, you know.
It's infinite, isn't it?
I think that's why the supermental is needed, because it's flexible for all parts. All creation of mind.
In what we see Sri Aurobindo doing is giving us images of that reality from all different angles, looking at different aspects of it, because that's the only way that it can be presented to the human mind. We can't see it all at once. It's interesting in the first canto of the book, of book 2, Sri Aurobindo sees this pile of worlds. He sees, in a way, all of them at once. And that gives us kind of a summary of these different worlds. But then, as he wants, when he looks into them, let's say in greater detail, and then he takes us through this journey one step at a time through many, many different levels, and gives us a picture, and each one is like a world. And so full of different possibilities and things and beings and forces.
The beauty is he keeps on connecting into overall picture also. Gives a snapshot, then he tries to connect everything together also. Some lines here and there.
And then it's interesting also that our world, our physical planet, is a kind of a meeting place of all of these worlds, or human beings also are a meeting place where they all are having influences and playing on us, but also we can open to all these different worlds and see, like Aswapati is doing. So they all meet in some way within each person.
Well, they're leaking through your broken mirror. Right? Sometimes.
It was somewhere I think that conscious oneness. That is why all the problems are known. This is not there in mind.
Behind the question is also that our world is always evolving. I mean, 40 years ago, we had no computer in this way, no laptop, all this. How it's evolving and how, from the higher level, how you say, they know it or guided it. I don't know how to say. Is this coming from this development from the world here, or coming from above, the influence and the guiding?
Yeah, there's both, right? There's this emergence from what is held within matter. Its different possibilities are slowly emerging, but they emerge also due to this influence from above.
It's where the big scientists and big artists, how these get the inspiration. So it's like the inspiration is from above, but we have our own ideas and our own evolutions, and we have freedom to do whatever we do with those inspirations. So according to his skills, Einstein makes something, and a big artist makes something, musician makes something. That's our freedom, human skills, minds freedom. The inspiration, all great inspirations come from these levels.
Okay, can we continue?
Actually, before reading, I need to tell one thing that, like old pyramids and the ancient carvings in the ancient temples, either in India or outside, like the Tesla, what he has experimented that without a media he will transfer the electricity. So now there have been some revelation that the pyramids were for that purposes. So from the ionosphere, the power can be transmitted. And in Japan also the physicists, the theoretical physicists and they are working on this without any media, the electricity can be transferred. So we are saying that we have evolved recently we got the computers. But if we are seeing the carving, then they are seems to be more advanced. So here there is a difference I don't get who has evolved. And recently that carvings in one of our historian that in some place called some T starts with that, I'm not able to pronounce it. That this mutation and the genes they have carved in those temples. It's a something like that name is near to that. And the celestial things like stars which we cannot see up with our naked eyes or in telescopes. So that has been carved carved in those temples, and it has been carved like if people are going like this, they won't be able to figure out. You have to turn like this, or something is there. It is kind of a hidden kind of thing. So again, whether we have evolved or whether we have even the moral values and all those things, what we are taught in the world, that these are the things. But people are doing, not following those rules, and they're enjoying the world. So,
Yeah, there's, and Sri Aurobindo's described these ancient scriptures, right, of the Vedas, Upanishads, so these many, many thousands of years back. And so these people had this great knowledge, spiritual knowledge, and what you're describing is similar, okay? I mean, even Ayurveda and these kind of more practical types of knowledge were also there in ancient, very, very ancient times. So there is a reserve of knowledge up above in this realm, perhaps, that he's describing here. And our souls can go access those realms. And in ancient times, there wasn't the development of intellect like now. There was kind of a more intuitive kind of knowledge. So maybe they didn't have such a distraction in a sense of having this more developed intellect, which is very sharply focused on so many different types of things, right? So they were more open to this intuitive knowledge and maybe could more easily somehow access these through intuition, these higher realms. And so the knowledge is there on the in these higher planes. If we can access that, we can access that knowledge. But at the same time, there is this slow development taking place that is not just seeking some higher knowledge of these higher planes of consciousness, but a full development of this physical world. So that requires this full development of intellect in order to refine matter, to refine this world, to develop this world in its fullness, not just kind of a rare human being who has some kind of higher intuitive knowledge. So that's why there's the necessary for both, but also that higher knowledge that has come in the early times helps in our development, and we get a guide to where we need to grow, how to develop, seeing these higher possibilities that are there that we can strive towards.
I think it's wishful thinking or maybe longing for the past. We connect with recent scientific developments and inventions to our old knowledge, like he's talking about Egyptian pyramids or some carving, this thing. Maybe it's wishful thinking, or maybe we just want to connect subconsciously to very old. One possibility is there. Evolution has come down, gone up again, come down again. Like we have yugas, we have different ways, but in this present time, I don't think it's very useful to connect it to the old engravings or old monuments. They have developed independently this science and knowledge and intellect has developed mutually because of human efforts. Basically, of course, one inspiration from above, but connecting.
Yeah, it may meet again in its own way, in its own form, this knowledge. And it seems to be going in that direction somehow. Let's just finish this last section here. Okay.
A happiness it brings of whispered truth. There runs in its flow honey, the bosom of space, laughter from the immortal heart of bliss, and the unfathomed joy of timeliness, the sound of wisdom's murmur in the unknown, and the breath of an unseen infinity, in gleaming clarities of amethyst air, the chainless and omnipotent spirit of mind brooded on the blue lotus of the idea, a gold supernal sun of timeless truth, poured down the mystery of eternal ray through a silence quivering with the world of light on an endless ocean of discovery. Far off, he saw the joining hemispheres on meditation's mounting edge of trains. Great stairs of thought climbed up to unbound heights, where the time's last ridge, ridges touch eternity's skies, and nature speaks to the spirit's absolute.
Thank you. So Sri Aurobindo gives us one last look into these worlds of the overmind, the very highest realms of the mind, eternal, blissful, a chainless and omnipotent spirit of mind, brooded on the blue lotus of the idea. I don't have any insights into this blue lotus, but some kind of expression of this ideal thought. And then, even above this overmind realm, a gold supernal sun of timeless truth poured down the mystery of the eternal ray through a silence quivering with the word of light on an endless ocean of discovery. So he's right at the borderline of where overmind meets supermind, where truth kind of separated into different ideas or ideals merges into a oneness of a total vision, of all ideas, all ideals at once. Far off, he saw the joining hemispheres. This is the hemispheres of knowledge and ignorance. The upper hemisphere of supermind and Satchidananda, and the lower hemisphere of mind, life, and matter. On meditation's mounting edge of trance. So in a very deep trance, on the very heights of consciousness in his trance, he saw great stairs of thought climbed up to unborn heights where time's last ridges touch eternity's skies, and nature speaks to the spirit's absolute. So he's seeing on this deep meditation these stairs climbing into the absolute.
Do you feel that he's balancing that earlier part where it was the exorbitant acts of tears and your passport to get to this realm is canceled, but then here it's all flowing, and then he brings in this laughter from the immortal heart of bliss. So he really, it seems to me, it really balanced the whole picture in such a way that you can't miss it. It's beautiful poetry.
Yeah, I mean, in several places he says, it's kind of closed to humans and their ignorance because it's a world of truth. And so we have to shed that ignorance before we can actually arrive there. But it's possible. He keeps also saying there is that possibility, and Aswapati has done it, and Sri Aurobindo has done it, and he says, if I can do it, then you can do it. He's just the leader of the...
If you fill space with honey, and you fill the immortal heart with laughter, I mean, what more?
Yeah, it's a world of divine bliss and, not only knowledge, but also of bliss and delight and love, and all these great ideals are there.
That's the blue lotus.
Also the Satchitananda triune, one not to see the spring, the world, the sun and God.
The Satchitananda, all of these forces of delight, of ananda, of knowledge, of will, all of these are active here in this borderline realm. So we stop there for today. You have some music.
clarities of amethyst air, the chainless and omnipotent spirit of mind brooded on the blue lotus of the idea.
Thanks to Sri